A group of farm animals, fed up with the abuse and neglect of the farmer, rise up and take control over their farm. But will that bring the change they seek? That's the question posed by Animal Farm, an animated film adaptation of George Orwell's famous fable, created as propaganda by the U.S. government in 1954, at the height of the Red Scare. We'll talk about that, as well as George Orwell's original novel, this time on Movie Bones.
Welcome, everyone. And first, I want you to know this from the bottom of my heart, that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And with that, I want to welcome you all today to the world of cartoon propaganda, as we cover one of the best stories of all time. Take that sarcastically if you want to. One of the greatest animated films of all time, George Orwell's Animal Farm. Or really...
Nice intro.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Build the people up. Build the people up, Ryan. Build them up.
Yeah, Animal Farm.
Based off of George Orwell's famous... is it a novella? It's a short story,
It's a short story. You can find it online for free, apparently on the Marxist website.
But Animal Farm, yeah, it's if you're one of those few people out there who are not familiar with the story, it's about a group of mistreated animals that start a revolution on their farm against their tormentor, the farmer, Farmer Jones, only to see a familiar threat rise from within their own ranks. And this is a 1954 animated translation of George Orwell's Animal Farm, with the voices of Gordon Heath and Maurice Denham, and directed by Joy Batchelor and John Halas. And with that, I had trouble classifying this in my mind because, like you said, when you see the story behind it, it's kind of, propaganda is film. Mm-hmm. And film is propaganda. I guess in terms of it's a medium. Film is a medium, and propaganda uses this as a medium in this case. But tell us more about that.
If you did not know this, this movie, an animated studio or a studio came to his wife or his widow to procure the rights.
Orwell's widow. Yeah, Orwell's right?
widow. Yeah. Procure the rights to make this movie. And she said, yes, that's fine. And it was a little bit later on, I think after the movie was made, that it came out that this studio was the CIA. The Central Intelligence Agency of America created a studio and took two agents and created this movie.
That's amazing. And did they have any previous experience in filmmaking at all, or is it just...
from what I can tell, they're documentarians. That's the directors of this movie anyways, are documentarians. They clearly were very close to or worked with the CIA, became kind of like CIA operatives in that sense. And I got to point this out as well, that, this movie, I should have watched a trailer for this beforehand. I did not do that. That's the only thing I should have done. And I say that now because of what I'm looking at on my screen right here. And I encourage you, pause what you're doing and go find the posters, one of the advertisement posters for this movie. And you can see that they were trying to appeal to people who have probably never read the book before, because I am going to tell you what is on this poster, and it's an official poster. I want to make that very clear. Animal Farm, the wonderful length Technicolor cartoon. And at the very top, it says, you'll laugh and cry a little at the antics of the animals on, and then it goes into the Animal Farm. And
okay, now that's definitely...
I want to make this very clear. At no point during this movie, and at no point during this book, did I ever go, oh, those pesky animals.
Oh, that boxer going to the glue farm. He'll do anything for a laugh,
Yeah. Now, are there cutesy type animals in this movie? Yes, there's a little duck that you see at the first part of this movie, and it's doing all these cutesy little things. But it needs to be made very clear. This is not, there is nothing other than that cutesy little duck that will make you laugh. It might make you cry, but it won't make you laugh by any stretch.
Boy, talking about trying to extract, blood from a stone. If that's what you're going on for your entire marketing campaign, is this one little duck. We put a cute duck in it. See?
Yeah.
We're not lying to you blatantly.
Yeah.
just almost entirely. Because I saw this for the first time before you mentioned even that it was a CIA-run thing. If there was any kind of pro-American slant to it, it's probably just the makers, being influenced by the time. Little did I know how much control there was actually being exerted on this stuff.
We're not trying to be super political. This is a political movie. You cannot you cannot walk away from it. I am personally not a communist. I will never be a communist.
Are you now or ever been a member of the Communist Party, Ryan Spurlock?
I have not, and I won't be. That being said, this is, whether you like it or not, this movie is an anti-communist movie. And I think it's very important to distinguish that this movie is an anti-communist movie.
It was specifically evoking the events that happened in Russia during the 1917 revolution and what followed afterwards with, Lenin and Stalin, the totalitarian state as it was understood at the time.
Definitely also anti-Stalin. And the book does a better job, I think. Well, yeah, I'm going to say that. The book does a better job of getting that point across. And there's a reason for that because, George Orwell had his reasons for writing this book. You do have like a time period from, I don't want to say the 20s, maybe the 30s, but the 30s to like the 50s, you do have quite a few government-sanctioned, in a sense, cartoon propaganda. And some of your faves have definitely been in different types of films or shorts that depict, again, propaganda. Donald Duck, well, Daffy Duck too, but both the ducks.
Bugs Bunny.
There's a specific, like a short film of Donald Duck actually living life as a Nazi. And it's a dream.
I remember this, growing up.
It's a dream sequence. And, at the end of it, it's like, oh, they're bad because throughout the whole entire thing, you realize that how bad the Nazis are. The Nazis are bad. I want to make that very clear.
Oh, yeah.
But again, that's propaganda. The same thing, Looney Tunes, they did the same, type of things. There's a lot of it out there. I love sitting down and watching it because it's again, as we've said before, you're seeing a different time. And once you understand why it's happening in that time, you can, some of it's a little bit forgivable.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's forgivable here in this case.
I draw the line on propaganda where it's like the political version of a Mary Sue story.
Mm-hmm.
You know what a Mary Sue story is?
Well, I mean, I know what Mary Sue is, so.
A Mary Sue character is the kind of character that can do no wrong.
Yeah.
They are like the uber character. They typically are written by people who don't have very much writing experience. They become very boring, and because it's just nothing interesting happens to them because they're always in command of situations. And for me, it's like propaganda films are kind of like that Mary Sue. It's the wish fulfillment. It's like the wish fulfillment version of the nation. This is not who we ought to be. This is who we are.
Yeah.
As opposed to a movie, for example, that would show the nuance and say, well, we have ideals, but we don't always live up to them, right? That would be a more realistic take on, and I would call not propaganda. If you're able to look at yourself critically, whether that self is you as a person or whether that's you as the nation, looking at yourself and examining exactly the nature of your character, what the state of your character is at this moment. Because I can guarantee you it's not perfection.
Yeah.
It's not as perfect as you would like it to be. They are an interesting, artifact from days past because you will find it throughout our history.
I'm also a big fan of dystopian, and this does, in my opinion, kind of fall into a dystopian type of trope. Of course, Orwell. That's that's part of Orwell's shtick, is that kind of dystopian nightmare type world This book is, if you look, the book itself, anyways, it comes out, and then his next book is 1984, which is just another fantastic piece of literature and film. Also, again, very anti-Stalin and whatnot. And I keep saying that because the biggest difference in these two films, or in these two pieces of media, is that idea. Both of them are anti-Stalin. Both of them are anti-communism in a sense. But George Orwell, what he's trying to push forward is not necessarily, he's not trying to be necessarily pro-communist, but he's saying, like, he's looking at the ideals that prop this up. And at the beginning of the movie, you see that it's like, okay, these aren't the worst things in the world, but this is how they can become easily corrupted. And what the movie does is the movie tries to show you from the get-go, this is just a bad ideal all around. You talked about the Bill of Rights. America set itself upon this idea that all people were created equal, but we were already at the reworking of the animal code. I hate to say it, as much as a patriot that I am, as much of a very pro-American person I am, the truth of the matter is, when it was written, there is that subcontext of all men were created equal, but some men are more equal than others. That's just the truth of the matter. Now, we'll hopefully get to the point where we really do live under the idea that all humans are equal and nothing else, nothing more, nothing less.
It's a perpetual struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I see it more as is to pass the torch forward, to try and put 1 foot forward, always put 1 foot forward better than what we got.
Yeah.
Because in the future, we may make progress in one step in one area, and we might lose ground in another, because the landscape is always changing. And it's partly technology, but it's partly us too. What we think and how we think changes over time and creates both new possibilities and also new entrapments. You see, I just see it more along, this is getting philosophical now. Our role is not to have some kind of final determinant on these issues in our lifetime. We have to be content in a way to make one little bit of progress toward a better place.
Yeah.
So it's a humbling point of view, which is good because in contrast, if you see what happens when you have people who do search for they want that final battle, say good will finally triumph over evil if we just smash it. We will rise up, we will put a strong man in place, like Napoleon, and they will smash the injustice, and then all will be good. If we can just rise up and do that, then all will be good. It's almost like apocalyptic, this final battle, but it's put in very worldly terms, this insistence on having that final battle be a material one. It's one of externalizing your opponent and externalizing the evil, and then you get to wipe it all out, right? And that's just not how it is, because the evil actually, and this goes back to what we were saying too, is that the evil happens to be inside of each one of us.
Yes.
We're all prone to it. And it should be humbling, but we are always very prone to that little voice in our ears that tells us we're the hero, we're the good guys.
Yes. I know I'm definitely talking more about the book than I am the movie, but it's kind of the same way in the book and the movie, but not as much. But every character is important. And by that, I mean, like, there's no background characters in the book itself. The movie kind of tries to do that, but if you know the book, which I encourage, read the book before you watch the movie, you will understand who the characters are as they are. And every character represents somebody from history, either a specific person, an amalgamation of two specific people, or a group of people in general. Like the pigs, they're different types of leaders, or people that were benefiting from the power in Russia at the time. The humans, they are specific people. Specific animals are specific people, and specific groups of animals are representations of specific groups. Now, there is one thing I wanted to bring out, and this is a big change from the book and the movie, but the movie still shows it. There is a raven that is shown throughout the whole entire film, and usually when the raven shows up, it's a watcher of sorts. The Raven is super important because of who the Raven actually represents. And again, I'm about to get a little preachy here. Don't mean to. But the Raven in the book represents the church. And for the longest time in the book, the Raven is kind of like on the human side and everything. And by the humans, I mean the old power. But Napoleon, who takes over, lets the Raven come back in, but has it under strict, basically lock and key. And that's something to point out, is that the Raven is a critique of the church, just sitting there and watching things happen. I think a lot of people's biggest issue with this movie is the ending of the movie. In the end of the movie, it shows like, oh, if we all rise up, we can overthrow our evil oppressors and whatnot. That's not how the book ends. The book ends on a very melancholy note on purpose, because it's designed to make
ambiguous, right?
It's very ambiguous, and it wants to make you think. And it also ends on showing what the pigs are becoming or have become. And I don't really give that away, but it shows what the pigs are becoming or have become. And it's supposed to make you think, not act, but think, so that you can act in the future, because the end of the movie is it's set upon more of like an emotional reaction. And, again, it's going to have that, okay, what do we do now type of ordeal. So in a way, it's kind of like, I don't know, it almost presents itself to a vicious cycle. There is a donkey. The donkey's name is Benjamin. In the book, the donkey Benjamin is the cynic. Every society needs a cynic. He's skeptical. I'm gonna read the description on Wikipedia. He is skeptical, he is temperamental, and he's cynical. A lot of people took it as actually him being a representation of George Orwell. So much so that his friends even started calling him Donkey George after this was all said and done. But he's a cynic. Society needs cynics. Yeah. We need the people to say, I don't know about that. And it doesn't happen in this movie. It doesn't happen until it's almost too late. But the people that speak up can help.
I think I'd separate skepticism from cynicism, in that cynicism to me is often used as a way to actually end up justifying the very kind of things that the animals that we're rebelling against, or the animals were becoming. Let me rephrase that. Cynicism can be used as a tool to try to justify the actions that will lead to the animals becoming more like their tormentors.
Yes.
I don't know if you just want to say there's good cynicism versus bad cynicism, or at least some distinction there, because I think I like to say skepticism over cynicism.
I would say there's probably good versus bad. And I don't know, maybe hope versus not hope, because in one area that I would definitely disagree with Benjamin is life will go on as it has always gone on. That is badly. So it's like a nothing will change type of ordeal. This power that is promising us good is no different than the last power that also was promising us good. I don't think that way. I always think there's a way of change. So, yes, you need to personally figure out if the skeptic that is being skeptical in front of you, the cynic that is being cynical in front of you, you need to really study them. You need to figure out who they are and what their motives are. You can do that. Take everything anybody says always with enough grain of salt that you can study it for yourself.
I guess that's about it for our coverage of Animal Farm, the animated propaganda film from 1954. Next week, we're going to be covering The Postman Always Rings Twice, which for me is a film that I just recently saw for the first time. And it's a title that I'd heard mentioned more of in the ether. It's just kind of one of those things that I absorbed somewhere. And it's like, oh, that sounds familiar. But I did check it out recently, and I have thoughts, Ryan, but they'll have to wait until next week. So,
what are we going to rate this on our Movie Bones grading scale?
I have a hard time with that one. I think Because I don't think it would be a trust me quite, unless you're into propaganda films. In which case, if you like propaganda films like Ryan does, if you're one of that niche group, then I think it could be a trust me. But or it could just be for me. I think for me, I think it's more of like it belongs in a museum. I think that's where it is for me. Because I don't see myself watching this any more than once every few years, just as like, oh yeah, that was an interesting little thing. Maybe it's worth rewatching a bit. It does have enough commonalities with the original source material to at least gain some drama out of it. It's relatively well animated for its day, and its historical component does give it some interest. So I think in a museum for me. How about you, Ryan?
I would say belongs in a museum to almost trust me. And the reason why is because I'm not a person that's going to sit down and watch this just a lot. Supposedly there's going to actually be another Animal Farm movie coming out in the future.
I heard something about that with Andy Serkis is
I hope that
participating in it in some fashion.
I hope that one's a little bit more true to the book than this, but who knows? Maybe that's more propaganda. We'll find out. But I think it belongs in a museum. I think it's a fascinating piece of our history. And again, you can understand it from the point of view of the time period and everything, whether you agree with it or not. So belongs in a museum to trust me. I would say don't put this unless you're willing to have a conversation with them. Do not put this in front of your kids as like a cartoon movie. Please don't. It's, they won't understand it at all. It is not a film in which you'll laugh and you'll cry a little at the antics of the animals on the animal farm. It's not, let's let our kid watch this because it's a cartoon with cute animals on it. I mean, if you're going to do that, turn the sound off.
In any case, guys, that's about it for our show this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and to follow our feed and to be able to just join in and watch the movies with us. Get ahead of the curve, watch the films before you check into the episode if you want. Or, if you don't mind spoilers, just check into the episode blind. We don't mind either way. So on that note, Ryan, I guess I'll see you next week.
See you next week. And I want to tell all the folks out there that all animals are equal. And that's it.
That's it. All animals are equal. There you go. Best way to end it. Thanks for your help, Ryan, and see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye, folks.